Thank you. Particularly our speakers. Please.
You guys are on the play. I'll have to stare at him the entire time. No, now we are.
What?
Is everybody seated who wants to be seated? Okay. Then let's go ahead and get started. Could someone hit the lights in the back? Dim them a little bit. All right. Welcome to a forum as presented by the State Libertarian Executive Committee. We are very excited to have you all tonight. And tonight our focus will be on building effective... Was that me? I didn't... Okay.
No, you're fine.
Okay. All right. My apologies. I'm sure that hurt everybody's ears quite a bit. Tonight's focus is on building effective organizations to lobby for whatever cause or causes it is that you care about most. We're very happy to be able to present an excellent panel, and I will introduce all of them to you right now. First, we have Cheyanne Weldon with NORML. She previously served as Texas NORML Secretary for 3 years and is now Director of Women's Outreach. In 2012, she was honored as High Times Freedom Fighter of the Month, so that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Then we have Greg Foster, who is the Vice President of EFF Austin, an independent nonprofit civil liberties organization staffed by experts who comprehend the complexities that arise at the intersections of science, society, and technologies. Wait, that's Greg at the very end. I'm very sorry. This is not in order. Matt Simpson. Undergraduate degree in political science and a JD from Lewis and Clark Law School. He is now a policy strategist at the ACLU of Texas. And that is what he's doing for us tonight. Next we have Jeanette Moll. Nod so that I know I got that one right. Yes. Juvenile Justice Policy Analyst in the Center for Effective Justice at the Texas Public Policy Foundation. Prior to joining TPPF, she served as a legislative aide in the Wisconsin Legislature, where she dealt with various policy issues, media affairs, and constituent outreach. Next, we have Michael Cargill, who is an Army vet, served for 12 years, and he's co-owner of the Central Texas Gunworks, Austin-based store which sells firearms and offers a variety of firearms training, including CHL courses. He does a lot of Second Amendment activism. Next, we have Terri Hall, founder of San Antonio.
Hey, Terri.
Founder of San Antonio Toll Party and Texans Uniting for Reform and Freedom. She's also a homeschool mom of 8 and takes taxpayer advocacy very seriously. She's done some wonderful work. And that at the end is Greg Foster, who I introduced earlier. So thank you guys very much for being here. We have, what we're doing tonight, is it, okay, there we go. We are trying to learn how to build better organizations to reach out for the causes we care about. Right now, I'd like to tell you about some of the county organizations that we have going. We have 50 organized, no, how many organized counties do we have? 51 in Texas, including Williamson County and Travis County. And I mention that specifically because I imagine many audience members are from those two areas. So if you would like to participate in those two counties, you're more than welcome. The Williamson County has their chair and vice chair here. If you all could raise your hand. That's Bo Zimmerman and Robert Butler. And they have meetups every month. Their business meeting is the second Tuesday, and you can find them on meetup.com. So please stop by and find out what they're doing. I am the chair in Travis County, and we also have, yay, Travis. We also have meetings once a month, and we're working on having socials every month. And we tend to use our Facebook page more. So if you could find us there, that would be most appreciated. All right. So.
It's under her chair.
Sorry? Okay. So as I said, we're here tonight to learn more about building strong organizations, citizen coalitions, activist groups to get more done. And we invited you all because you're experts in doing that. So let me tell you about the format tonight with that overall goal in mind. First, I'm going to ask you to each spend a minute describing your organization's goals. Then, I'd like to ask you to describe a year-round picture of the channels you work through to achieve those goals. Then after that, I'd like you to describe specifically what you're doing in the legislative cycle. And then finally, I'd like you to ask what is the most effective thing that one individual can do, just what really helps the most, has the greatest power. After that, we'll open up to audience participation. So unless there are any questions or caveats from the panel, I think we'll begin with Cheyanne down here. If we could just get a minute from each of you about the goals of your organization, and next time we'll talk about how you achieve them. So right now, just the goals, please.
Okay, is that better? Okay, I knew I shouldn't have said at the beginning of the table. I actually moved my card to sit here, so sorry. So the goal of NORML as a national group, which we are with over 100 chapters nationwide, Texas NORML is the chapter in Austin, but the national message is that we're trying to move public opinion sufficiently so that the adult responsible use of cannabis is no longer a crime. That's the basic core message in whatever way we can do that. And for those of you who don't know, NORML is the National Organization for the Reform of Marijuana Laws, established in 1970 when we thought it would be legal very soon, and we're still trying, so.
Same here.
Well, I am from the state affiliate of the ACLU, so all of our goals tend to be either local or statewide in nature. And they fall into four categories. We work on immigrants' rights, we work on school-to-prison pipeline issues, we work on trying to end over-incarceration, try to address issues like the death penalty, the use of solitary confinement, and then finally we work on religious freedom to try to make sure that the public forum is a place where everybody of any religion or no religion has kind of an equal chance. In terms of the specifics, I think the most interesting of the campaigns for this group is probably our work with school to prison and with criminal justice, which will actually overlap probably kind of more than you would expect with TPPF. So I'll try to keep it brief, but we're particularly interested in trying to end ticketing in public schools. Texas has a major problem with over-ticketing students in class. Or in the halls. We're looking at some accountability measures for law enforcement that are placed in schools. Most schools now have law enforcement stationed there full-time, but there is no specialized training, and there is no data on arrests and citations from schools. So we're working on those issues with the Ledge this session, with TPPF, with Texas Appleseed, and a pretty nice spectrum of groups. And then when it comes to criminal justice, we're particularly focused on over-criminalization, which certainly touches on some of the drug law reform, as well as looking at the death penalty if possible, which is a little tricky at the ledge, and solitary confinement, as I mentioned. So those are kind of some of the things I'll probably talk about in the context of our work to come.
Thank you.
So my foundation is a nonpartisan, nonprofit think tank devoted to, thank you, devoted to free markets and individual liberty. And so we seek to effectuate those goals in a wide variety of policy areas. We were actually founded back in the 80s to focus on school choice, and we've now expanded to cover, I think we have 8 different policy centers now, from healthcare to education and higher ed, and why I'm here, criminal justice, juvenile justice, and over-criminalization. And so in those fields specifically, we work to make sure the government is as small as possible, because there has to be a role for government in criminal justice. But we also need to make sure that it's small and that it's effective. And so we work to make sure that they're not wasting taxpayer dollars, that they're not unfairly infringing upon the rights of citizens to perform their duties or to work in the free market. There's a lot of different things that we're working on this session, but a lot of them, as Matt mentioned, focus on criminal justice, school discipline reform, over-criminalization. We have thousands of felonies and misdemeanors on the books right now in Texas, and we need to make sure that we're only making public safety issues a criminal law issue. So we'll go to more specific
Goal. I don't know. There's so many of them. Where do we begin? My goal is to get constitutional carry in the state of Texas. That's my goal. My goal, what is my goal? My goal is to tell the government to stay out of my home, stay out of my bedroom, and keep your hands off my guns. That's my goal. So many goals. My goal this year is to have open carry passed in the state of Texas. That is my goal. My goal is to have concealed carry on campus passed this year. That is my goal. My goal is to have everyone that I possibly can to support all pro-gun legislation in the state of Texas. I want to get you to show up. That's my goal. I need you to join me. I don't want to be alone. That's my goal.
Absolutely, I'll piggyback on that. We can't do this alone. That's why you are also integral to what we do. But TERB, our primary mission is defending property rights and the freedom to travel. So it's transportation-related issues. And as you can imagine, as you've been you're getting hit with an onslaught of toll roads, in particular in Austin. The way they're being done, I think you'd find very offensive as libertarians. It really is one of the biggest impediments to our freedom to travel in our modern age. Two of the things in particular that would be of interest to your group that we're working on this legislative session is the way that they're criminalizing driving. There's a lot of areas now where you just literally can't even drive in your car. We were the only group, by the way, to testify against the ban on texting in your vehicle. If you actually read that bill, that means that if you're even holding your phone in your car, a cop can give you a $100 ticket. If you're even touching your phone. And it's only a defense of prosecution if you can prove you're guilty until proven innocent. You have to go into court and prove that you were only dialing your phone or programming your GPS. But otherwise, they will assume that you're guilty, and how many people are going to take a day off work and go pay to park downtown, and all of this to defend a $100 bill. Of course, some of you will, but most people won't, and they're counting on that, and so it's really a revenue generation scheme, which we said in committee. Then another thing is how they're going to criminalize us for failure to pay tolls. Ultimately, you can be thrown in jail for failing to pay tolls. It's like a debtor's prison, which is against the Constitution, both federal and state. So this is a huge problem, and it's going to continue to be a problem until we rein it in. And we would love the help of the activists in this room to help us do that, because we do need to have help. We can't be the only lone wolves in committee, and they see me at every transportation committee hearing. So it helps to have other faces. So especially when you live in Austin, if you can make it at all to the legislature for committee hearings, it's going to be a key time for us here during the session. So we'll tell you how you can do that. We have a whole table in the back with lots of information and a comprehensive list of all the bills that have been filed this session, and if they're good or bad as they relate to transportation and property rights. So I encourage you to snag that when you get a chance. But
Thank you.
Well, it is wonderful to be here with all of y'all here tonight, and thank y'all for showing up. I'll echo the sentiments. I think that part of winning is really actually just showing up. I think that more and more folks are seeing that now. I myself am just recently kind of stepping up into the political realm more. EFF Austin has been around for a good while, actually since the foundation of the Electronic Frontier Foundation. I don't know if any of y'all, how many of y'all here are familiar with the EFF? All right, so a good amount. Do y'all remember back 1990, 1991 or so, when the Secret Service raided Steve Jackson Games and kind of bumbled that whole operation? All right, so we've got one person who remembers. So the EFF was formed as a result of that particular incident because there was recognition of the fact that we have this whole new online realm, and who's going to protect our rights out there? Who's going to keep an eye on what's going on? And so I'm a technologist by trade, computer geek by trade, so I understand kind of the ins and outs of how all this works. I understand the degree of the ease with which data is collected and aggregated and that sort of thing now. And so we're active again at this point. EFF Austin sort of waxed and waned over the years, and we feel like we're needed right now because online privacy and this entire domain, basically the pendulum needs to swing back in the direction of individual rights and protection of our information, our privacy. So tonight I'll tell you a little bit about a bill that we're working through at the state legislature, focused on geolocation tracking information. How many people have a cell phone here?
Why don't we let you move on into the second part of the question? We'll just keep the mic with you since you're in, at the end there.
All right.
And the question here is, could you all spend 2 minutes describing the various channels that you take, or the methods you take throughout a standard year, or maybe your cycle is 2 years, to advance your goals? And what I mean by cycle is, I know if you want to be active in the legislative session, you really need to start asking people to put in bills way before the session starts. So what is it, how do you plan this out to be most effective, and why don't you go right into it?
Sure. I'm probably the best person to start this one because we're building it as we go along. We really were just invited. How many of y'all are familiar with the Grits for Breakfast blog that Scott Henson writes on criminal justice here? So Scott and his partner Kathy Mitchell, who also happens to be my boss at Consumer Reports, they heard about this. Senator Patrick Leahy asked the telecommunications companies, well, how many requests do y'all receive per year from law enforcement, state and federal, for information, for subscriber data? That can be your email contents, your text messages, really just a record of your geolocation, which is everywhere your phone goes, just a map of everywhere you go, and your associations can be inferred from that, basically a diary of your digital life. And so the telecoms came back and said that they, in 2011, processed 1.3 million requests for data. So much so that they've had to build automated portals for this. This is getting more into the legislative piece, so we'll save that for later. So we were brought into this early this year. We've been making a lot of friends actually at the legislature because we're finding that our expertise is valuable. The perspective that we can provide as far as explaining how all this stuff works is needed. So we're being actually asked to help out or to file additional bills as regards geolocation tracking information, email contents. We were asked to help out on the anti-drone bill that's up right now, HB 912. And so we're kind of recognizing that we have a lot of work in front of us. And so we've begun developing out the different tool sets that we can use to organize people around the state. One tool that we use that I'm really excited about is called Nation Builder. And it's a really just sort of a member database organizing tool put together by some of the smartest guys in the room these days. We have websites, we're looking at Twitter outreach, Facebook, these sorts of things. You have to go where the people are at. So I have a lot of background in that sort of online organizing piece of the puzzle, and so we're trying to put those parts into play and figure out how to get all of that to work out together. But then there's all the traditional fundraising and those pieces as well. So we have lots of ideas, and we're just figuring out how
Yes.
to make it all work together.
And we will open it up to audience participation at the end. So if someone would like to ask him to elaborate on that, we can definitely do it.
Well, great. Well, I feel like I'm on a nonstop treadmill, whether it's the session through the legislature or not. With transportation, there is a role to play at the local, state, and federal levels. So literally, there's never a time to take your breath, because there's always one of those levels of government that's in your business. So one of the things we do in between sessions is, and this is where we started, was at the local level. There were some roads, particularly the road that got me involved was US 281, goes all the way, as you know, from really the border all the way up to Canada. But 281 goes throughout our state. They wanted to come in and take and convert all of our existing free lanes into toll lanes. Complete taxpayer ripoff, highway robbery. Of course, that didn't sit well with the grassroots. So we really started our movement based on collecting signatures and signups at TxDOT public hearings. And we would use the open mic time during the public hearing format to educate people about what was wrong with this and the waste and the boondoggles and everything else that was going on, and get signups that way. And you'd educate people both through the microphone, and we would also bring lots of flyers. And just, you know, you guys have probably done a lot of this, where you hand out flyers at public meetings because people just don't know what's really going on. So that's how we started. Then we started monitoring the local boards that were making the decisions, thumbs up or thumbs down on tolling. And here in Austin, they have one, and they have one in every city in the country that has a population of 50,000 or more, and they're called MPOs, Metropolitan Planning Organizations. And those literally are made up of local elected officials, and they're like little godfathers. They're their own. You know, these guys literally have so much power and can dole out so much public money, and they can abuse the taxpayer like you wouldn't believe. And most of the time, they stack them with areas of town that aren't being affected by tolls. So it's hard for you in the areas that are affected to pressure these boards to do the right thing, because they're just not in your district and they don't care if they toll you, because then that means more free road money for their district. So we do a lot at the MPO level. Then we also do a lot in the state legislature. And so we're having to juggle a lot of balls, because as you can imagine, you don't just walk into the session in January and expect that it's all going to fall into place. There takes a lot of groundwork. And we've just built relationships with a lot of legislators through the years, because they would carry bills. Now, we didn't initially ask them to carry those bills, but you find the legislators that are going to be your best bet on carrying your bill based on the other types of bills they carry. So for instance, Lois Colcourse is one of our big fans with property rights bills, and she was the one that almost single-handedly helped us repeal the Trans-Texas Corridor last session. Took us 3 sessions, but we finally did it. Now there's still lots of that going on.
Terri,
They've
why
kind
don't
of
we
gone underground.
leave
But
it for the legislative?
Sure.
Just
But we also get involved in campaigns, because that has to become an aspect as well. We have a PAC for that, but we do help candidates. I do robocalls for a lot of candidates to educate people about what their voting record was, or if they're a good guy, we want people to know and to vote for them for the right reasons. So we basically get involved at every level, and we've also done a lot of litigation. Sadly, that's one of the only things that gets their attention sometimes, is when the taxpayers sue the government. So we have experience in that too. So anyway, that's kind of the overview, but you really can do a lot by educating people just through the public hearing process. So I would encourage you to keep getting involved in that if you're not already.
Thank you.
Awesome. Ditto that. Definitely get involved. Some of the things that I do, I actually go around to a lot of different universities and colleges, and I talk to the students, because the students are a good voice and they are our future. So I go to the different groups. I talk to Republican groups. I talk to the Libertarian groups. I even try to talk to the Democratic groups, but I get kicked out of there. No, you would think, you know, my goodness, I'm a poster child for the Democratic Party, right? But African American, gay male, in a long-term relationship for 14 years, you think they would love me, right? No way, they locked me out the door. But yes, I definitely reach out to them, and I think education is the tool. So I actually travel to Lubbock. I talk to Texas Tech. I try to talk to every student group at Texas Tech. I go up to Baylor University. I try to talk to every student group at Baylor University. University of Texas, I will go there and talk to every student group at University of Texas. And just continue, you know, do this little loop and continue to talk to them and let them know that I need their help and get them involved. So then what happens is I get them excited. you know, and then they surprised me. Baylor University got 600 signatures in support of concealed carry on campus. Called me up and say, hey Mike, can you come to Waco? We're gonna go to the senator's office in Waco here, and we're gonna deliver 600 signatures from Baylor University, you know, because another group got together 100 signatures, so we have 600 that we want to turn in. I said, yeah, all right, I'll be there in a few minutes. I'm on my way. So we went and turned in those signatures. Another thing that I do is I actually will go after any company that attacks lawful gun ownership in this country. Groupon. That's right. Groupon decided that this year they were going to stop any deals dealing with gun ranges, any shooting clays, or any gun deals at all. They decided, hey, we're not going to do those at all. So they decided that they were going to attack lawful gun ownership in this country. So I said, you know what? No, we're not going to stand for that, because you're telling citizens who take the time out of their busy schedule to learn gun safety, to learn the law surrounding carry that gun, to actually try to do the right thing. You're saying you're going to target that individual, you're going to target that person and punish them, and you're not going to help them out. You're only going to support the criminal. So I said, no, we're not going to do that. You know what? We're not doing business with you. If you don't want to do business with us, we're not giving you our money.
All right, yeah.
Michael, I have a quick question for you before we move on. To go and speak to those student organizations, what does that normally require? Do you contact them directly? Do you have to get permission from the university?
Yes, I definitely reach out to the president of the group, and I, will try to get their number, give them a call, and say, hey, let me, come down and talk to your group, and just, let you know some of the things we're working on, and I like to talk with you guys and get your input on some things as well.
Right.
See, what are some of the things that you're looking for? What are some things you want to change?
Great idea.
Yeah, and get in the door, and definitely sit down and talk to them. So.
Thank you.
Well, we do operate on a 2-year cycle, and ours goes from July of an odd number year to July of the next odd number year. And we start in July because that's right after the last session ended. And as I mentioned earlier, we're a think tank. And so everything that we do is based on our research and based on the policy papers that we produce. So we sit down in July, and there's just under 40 employees at our think tank. And we sit down, and independent of any legislation, we start talking about the issues that we're concerned about. We highlight what the areas where we think government has grown too much and where we can reduce the size of government. We highlight problems that we see in legislation or in the law from the last legislative cycle. And we pick out the issues that we want to research and the issues that we want to talk about. And so we set up a schedule for our research, and each of us produces between 12 and 15 research papers each year. And that becomes the basis of our legislative work. And the way that happens is a variety of ways. A lot of times legislators read our stuff and contact us and say, I will file this bill for you, I agree 100%, write a draft up for me. And so we'll draft legislation for that legislator. Other times we have to do the legwork, and that means that we take our policy papers and we shop them to the legislature. And we say, this is what we think, these are the fixes that we could use in the legislature. Do you agree? And if they do, then we go through the same process where we draft up the legislation for them. And that's been actually a really important part of our work, is doing the draft itself, because legislative council doesn't always come up with the best draft. So we spent a lot of time educating ourselves on how you actually write the draft so that the legislators can just file it themselves without having to go through the legislative council. So then while we're in the legislative session itself, it's all about the nonpartisan effort, the lobbying effort to get that legislation passed. And that's testifying in committee hearings, that's one-on-one meetings with legislators, and that's media outreach. We find it's really, really important to have a good spin on our issues in the media if they do become an issue. And so we'll do press releases and interviews and columns, and we have a weekly column in the Statesman that we use to kind of advance our goals. And then at the end of session, we take a look back and we see how many bills we were able to get passed, and we start all over again.